The good young man of the 21st century, Chen Mu, traveled to the world of immortality and chivalry, bringing with him a small assistant that can extract attributes from the aftermath of battles. In ordinary villages, villagers fight. Physical strength +1, within the Cultivation sect, disciples compete in battles. Fire spirit root +1, cultivation +1, fire bullet technique +1, with a little assistance and personal efforts, Chen Mu originally intended to live a long life in this peaceful cultivation world. However, the cultivation world, which had been peaceful for thousands of years, suddenly became chaotic and disputes arose. So the assistant suddenly transformed, becoming a major auxiliary. Keywords of the novel. I extract attributes from the aftermath of battles without a pop-up window. I extract attributes from the aftermath of battles. Download the complete set of TXT and read the latest chapter on extracting attributes from the aftermath of battles. Chapter 1. Cultivation Diary. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Cultivation Diary. Under the dim candlelight, Chen Mu vigorously wrote. On the 18th day of the 12th lunar month, it is sunny. Today is the 328th day I came to this unfamiliar world with my little assistant. As usual, I got up before the big rooster in the village crowed. Have you ever seen the sun at 4 a.m. in Stone Village? I see you every day. Although I have some small assistance, it does not affect my diligence in the slightest. Because I deeply understand that to become a truly strong person, wisdom, cheating, diligence, all are indispensable. After practicing dart projection for 2 hours, I paid my respects to my master. Today is the 6th anniversary of his immortal passing. If it weren't for his elderly family bringing me to Zhou village, I might still be a wild man in the deep mountains now. Being a person requires gratitude, and I dare not forget the kindness of my master. At dawn, when I went out, the girl from the neighbor's house, Xiaohua, was still hiding behind a tree and secretly looking at me. I could only pretend not to see her. After walking 200 meters outside, Suelian, the second daughter of the village head's family, ran into me again. If I remember correctly, this was the 46th time she and I had run into each other. Like the previous 45th time, I greeted her and left. Then Zhuang's sister sent me breakfast again. Today, she sent me pot of millet porridge and 2 duck eggs. I didn't refuse. After breakfast, I met Widow Wang again. When she looked at me, she still had that greedy look, as if she wanted to eat me. Unfortunately, I am destined to cultivate immortality and cannot have any entanglement with ordinary women. Otherwise, what should we do if we develop feelings? What should I do if I get pregnant and have a child? As an honest man, I cannot afford to abandon my wife and children. When the time comes, those who have a family will have no other thoughts on cultivating immortality. Not to mention, in 20 days, my opportunity will come and I will have to leave Stone Village. So, I'm sorry Xiaohua, I'm sorry Zuelian, I'm sorry. 500 words are omitted here, you ultimately made the wrong payment. By the way, something else happened today. In the evening, a severely injured guy entered the village and was taken in by the old village chief. I have an impression of him. He is one of the group of mountain bandits who sneaked into the village in the middle of the night over a month ago but was scared away by me. This bandit is very good at acting, but he doesn't remember me. Before quietly finding out about him, I came up with some intelligence. In the mountains 50 miles away from Zhou village, 2 groups of bandits are snatching some medicinal herb. It is said that after obtaining this medicinal herb, one can exchange it for elixirs with the Cultivation sect. 2 groups of people fought and killed for this medicinal herb, and both sides have already suffered dozens of casualties. It has to be said that in the past 6 months, the outside has become increasingly chaotic. I remember when I first came to Stone Village, there were no mountain bandits around, but now there are 3 or 4 groups of people. But the village chief's thinking is still stuck in the past, daring to take in strangers at will. After that guy died, he felt even more remorseful and blamed himself for a long time. Alas, the folk customs of Shu village are too simple. My master entrusted me before my death, hoping that I could protect Shu village. I hope there won't be any trouble in Stone Village during the time I leave and join the Cultivation Sect. As long as you join the Cultivation Sect, that's enough. When the time comes, put up a sign of the Cultivation Sect at the entrance of the village, and Stone Village can rest assured. I can also fulfill my promise to my master and repay the kindness of my fellow villagers. On the 328th day of relying on my assistant, I was still an ordinary person, but I had almost reached the peak of being an ordinary person. There are still 20 days, and the opportunity is here. Whether it can be achieved or not depends on 20 days. I hope it can succeed. Come on. A gentle breeze blew into the house through the gap between the window and the mud wall. The light of the candle flickered endlessly. Chen Mu's handsome and charming face also faintly appeared. After finishing his cultivation diary, he looked at the crooked and twisted words on the paper and nodded with satisfaction. Then he rolled up the thin paper and sent it to the candlelight. The paper roll was quickly ignited, and the room suddenly lit up a lot. Chen Mu gave a faint smile. A serious person who writes a diary. How can I really write my heart out for others to see? It's just a person who is too idle to enjoy themselves. It's really impressive that we have to die in every minute. As the paper roll turned into ashes, Chen Mu began to examine his little assistants as usual. Host. Chen Mu age. 18 cultivation. Mortal talent. Fire spirit root, 5, reserve attribute. Empty combat fluctuation detection range. 3000 meters upgrade system conditions. 100 lower level spirit stones. His small auxiliary function is very simple, it is to extract some attributes from the aftermath of the battle, and then store them for himself to slowly absorb. Shu village is all mortal, and he can extract some physical strength from fights and other activities. However, not many are extracted at once, and it is rare to extract other attributes. In summary, this small assistant still conforms to the law of conservation of energy. This is also the reason why I call it a small assistant. I can't go against the sky, I can only do it for the small. With a small assistant around him, he should have traveled around to see where the strong fought and see if he could develop more features for the small assistant. However, he started out as an ordinary person. Not to mention the strong, he may not be able to withstand the aftermath of battles for ordinary cultivators. This is also one of the main reasons why he has been staying in Shu village. According to his previous plan, he will stay in Shu village until his strength cannot be improved, and then leave the village to search for the cultivation sect. With a certain level of strength, he also has a certain degree of self-protection ability when encountering robbers and bandits on the way. It should not be difficult to join the cultivation sect with his qualifications once he finds it. After all, not many ordinary people have spiritual roots. Although his cultivation skills are not very good, as long as he can smoothly enter the cultivation world, with his small assistance and his intelligence and wit, he can definitely break through a world. But 6 months ago, something happened that gave him a better opportunity. As long as he grasps it well, perhaps he can have a higher starting point in the cultivation world. Detected combat fluctuations at 450 meters southwest. At this moment, the assistant suddenly heard a warning sound, and Chen Mu's face changed slightly. After coming to Shu village for so many days, his physical strength has almost reached the limit of an ordinary person. When villagers fight, the system does not prompt at all. Because he can no longer benefit from that battle. I didn't expect. There was a prompt again today. Is there a powerful bandit entering the village in the middle of the night? Chen Mu dared not neglect and quickly stood up and walked to the wardrobe. In the past 6 months in Shu village, he has been taken care of by many villagers and has eaten 100 meals, not to mention the dying wish of his master. So if there really is any powerful bandit entering the village, he cannot sit idly by. Opening the wardrobe, Chen Mu skillfully put on her nightwear and then took out a treasure bag from under her pillow and stuffed it into her arms. Gently pushing open the door, it was pitch black outside. Chen Mu's figure flashed and merged into the darkness. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Master's Perseverance and Opportunities for Entering the Realm of Cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Master's Perseverance and Opportunities for Entering the Realm of Cultivation. A distance of several hundred meters was nothing to Chen Mu, but after arriving at the designated combat location in the system, he couldn't help but twitch slightly from the corner of his eyes. That is the house of Widow Wang in the village, and the lights are still on. Recalling the scorching, almost cannibalistic gaze that Widow Wang gave every time she saw her, Chen Mu hesitated. This Wang widow has a bad reputation. It is said that there are several mistresses. Could it be that what kind of eye-catching battle is it? For the sake of safety, Chen Mu quietly touched the window and glanced inside. There were no unexpected results. Upon hearing the prompt from the assistant in her mind, Chen Mu was slightly taken aback. His little assistant occasionally extracts some special attributes, and this special physical strength is obviously also a type. But after a moment, he reacted and his face became a bit ugly. Dog assist, what do you mean? I am born at level 1 and don't need to absorb this ability at all. Special physical strength +1, special physical strength +1. A scholar can be killed, not humiliated. Farewell. Chen Mu turned around and wanted to leave, but she always felt a sense of unease in her heart. This dog assists. Do you really think I can't do it? Okay. Let you know how powerful I am. Chen Mu snorted coldly, then collapsed and started doing push-ups in place. Standard posture and fast frequency. Bet your dignity. Although not accurate, it also indirectly reflects a certain aspect of ability. Under the blessing of a special spiritual force, Chen Mu gritted his teeth and his speed became faster and faster. It wasn't long before the creaking sound passed. Breakthrough on the spot. No. Play normally. Gradually, the special physical power stored in the system began to dissipate and eventually completely disappeared. The loophole assisted by the dog was forcibly fixed by him. After the room regained calmness and only the sound of snoring remained, Chen Mu slowly stood up. At this moment, his face turned white, but there was a triumphant smile on the corner of his mouth. Humph. Glancing inside the room, Chen Mu snorted coldly and turned around to leave. Returning to the room, Chen Mu's mind was filled with battle scenes, causing him to toss and turn and unable to sleep. Well, it's a bit restless. In order to suppress the restlessness in his heart, he instinctively thought of some sad things. For example, the deceased master. My master's name is Lu Hui, he knows martial arts and fortune-telling. If there were no cultivators in this world, master would definitely be a reclusive master. Upon arriving at Shitu village, the assistant successfully extracted 2 special attributes, the last time from their master. And that special attribute directly related to his opportunity to enter the cultivation world 20 days later. Time goes back 6 months ago. Chen Mu practiced dart throwing behind Lu Hui. This day seems to be no different from usual. I won't talk about skills or anything else, but your strength has indeed grown rapidly. Come on. Let's have a sparring with my teacher. Lu Hui, with graying hair, saw Chen Mu dart straight into the tree, and a hint of relief flashed in his eyes before speaking up. Chen Mu subconsciously agreed that his master had been sparring with him not once or twice, but he didn't think there would be anything special this time. However, compared to dart art, his martial arts are very average. The main reason for this is that he was influenced by his past life and felt that ranged combat was stronger than melee combat. Moreover, it can also sneak attacking people from a distance, and if it can't be defeated, it can still run away, making a steady move. So he almost devoted all his energy to practicing dart art. That's what I said, but with the balance of strength and reaction speed, it's not easy for Master to win against him. While fighting, the assistant suddenly sent a prompt. The deductive power of mortals +1, the deductive power of mortals +1. Upon hearing this prompt, Chen Mu was somewhat surprised. Master is still unwilling and wants to tell his own fortune. Detected that the host does not have a talent for deduction, all deduction power is converted into a mortal deduction skill. After more than 10 minutes of sparring, a prompt came back from the system. At this moment, Lu Hui suddenly spewed out blood and collapsed to the ground. Chen Mu was surprised at this and rushed over to take a look. It was only then that he realized that his master, who had just been able to spar with him a few times, was already as angry as a thread and his life was on the line. Before he could go find the doctor, Lu Hui spoke softly, "My disciple, my deadline has come, it's useless." He chuckled at himself as he spoke. "I have revealed too many secrets, and my lifespan is approaching. Oh, people like me can't just lie in the hospital bed and wait to die. So just now, disregarding the backlash of the heavens, I let go and deduced a wave, hoping to help you deduce some clues about your background. I didn't expect it to fail." Upon hearing these words, Chen Mu helplessly said, "Master, didn't I ask you not to tell my fortune?" Lu Hui smiled, with no hint of regret on his face. "Oh, I'm curious. To be honest with you, I have lived for over 70 years and traveled throughout the 20.4 states of Yen. I have never seen someone like you before. My strength has grown too fast. Half a year ago, I had no strength to hold on to a chicken. Now, although I am not capable of carrying a tripod, it is still about the same. You don't look like an ordinary person at all. And with your extraordinary face, I suspect that you may have been born into a certain cultivation family because you accidentally wandered into the mountains and forests. If I could deduce your background, perhaps it could bring you back to your family and step into the realm of cultivation." Upon hearing this, Chen Mu felt extremely sour in his heart. Master's greatest wish in his life is to step into the realm of cultivation. Unfortunately, his elderly family does not have a talent for spiritual roots. And if he could accept a cultivator as his disciple, it would also dispel his obsession in his heart. "Master, one day I will enter the realm of cultivation." Chen Mu comforted in a soft voice, with an extremely firm tone. Lu Hui smiled with relief and said, "I know you can do it. Whether it's your appearance or destiny, you are out of place with us mortals. Unfortunately, I couldn't help you." "Master, don't say such things. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been eaten by the fierce beasts on the mountain. Don't worry, if I become a fairy someday, I will announce it to the world. Lu Hui from Shitu village is my mentor." Lu Hui was slightly taken aback at the words, and a hint of tears flashed in his eyes. Then he gently shook Chen Mu's hand and passed away. After burying his master, Chen Mu used that mortal deduction technique. Master doesn't know where he comes from, but he still has a clear idea in his mind. And he also knows how to deduce himself. He can't deduce anything. So even if he keeps this mortal deduction technique, it's useless. When using this mortal deduction technique, he did not deliberately deduce who, but instead attempted to deduce a wave towards the direction of cultivation, hoping to see if he could deduce some clues about cultivation. Even if it's a waste, it's not too bad. However, what he didn't expect was that an accident happened. I don't know if it was due to the insufficient computing power of ordinary people's deduction skills or for some other reason, but in the end, the small auxiliary deduction performed a very peculiar result, which came to mind in Chen Mu's mind. Ancestor of Qingyang sect. 1,000 years later, the calamity of annihilating our sect will come. However great a calamity may be, there is always a glimmer of hope. According to my deduction. On the 9th day of the first lunar month in the year 620 of the Xianyang calendar, our Qingyang sect opened its mountain gate. On the day after recruiting disciples, a person who should be robbed will come to our Qingyang sect. If we accept this person, our Qingyang sect can safely overcome this calamity. On the contrary, my Qingyang sect will surely perish. Please remember, younger generations. Watching the result of the small assistant's performance, Chen Mu was still a bit speechless at first. What is this? This is something deduced by others. The little assistant was good, just took a sneak glance, and it was considered that it had deduced. However, Chen Mu quickly realized something unusual. In the 620th year of the Qingyang calendar, isn't it 6 months from now? This means that 6 months later, when the Qingyang sect recruits disciples, one person will be 1 day late, and the person who is late will be the one who should be robbed. If he had made the right time to go to Qingyang sect and become the so-called person who should be robbed, isn't it possible to have a higher starting point? The person who should be robbed, why can't Qingyang sect treat him unfairly? This is a huge help for him. Is it really Master who blesses himself with the spirit of heaven? Chen Mu had to think in this way. As for whether there will be another person who should be robbed at the same time as him, he didn't care too much. It is estimated that there will be some. After all, he is not from this world, so the founder of Qingyang sect should not be counted as him. And if there really is, then ambush in advance. Knock that person unconscious. Let him be 1 more day late. This isn't it too much, is it? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Is wrong about this world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 is wrong about this world. Time passed day by day, and as the new year approached, every household became happy. Chen Mu's food is also getting better and better. Due to being 1 year older, many young girls in the village couldn't resist and sent matchmakers to his house to propose a marriage. Of course, the vast majority of girls don't expect to succeed, but they have to give it a try. If it doesn't work, they can completely cut off their thoughts and find someone else, so as not to delay their age. Chen Mu naturally refused. On New Year's Eve, Chen Mu had a New Year's Eve dinner at the village head's house, and returned home to tidy up his things. He is not very clear about where Qingyang sect is, he only knows that it is not far from the state capital Phineas City. Starting from Shirtu village and heading to Phineas City, it will take about 3 days to drive with all your might. But for the sake of safety, Chen Mu decided to depart 8 days in advance. If it weren't for the approaching new year, the bandits outside were all striving for performance, he might have set off half a month earlier. Returning home, Chen Mu opened the cabinet and took out a small pocket from inside. The pockets are filled with silver bills commonly used in big cities, with a thick stack. So many silver bills are enough for an ordinary person to have no worries about food and clothing in this world. This is the master's savings. Although he may not be able to use it, he is still prepared to bring it all with him. Having money is easy to handle when going out. If everything goes smoothly and he returns to Stone Village one day, the benefits he can bring to the village are far beyond the comparison of these gold and silver. Put the silver note pocket on the bed, and Chen Mu took out the treasure bag from under the pillow. The Baibao bag contains nearly 100 hidden weapons, ranging from flying needles to flying knives weighing half a pound, everything from small to large. With 100 treasure bags, coupled with his martial arts skills, Chen Mu has confidence in annihilating a bandit group of 100 people. After putting away his treasure bag, he bent down and pulled out a small box from under the bed. Open the box, it is filled with various bottles and jars. There are treatments for falls and injuries, detoxification, and awakening. Of course, there are also poisons, sweating pills, and other medicines. Whether used directly or applied to hidden weapons, they are very convenient. After organizing the bottles and jars, Chen Mu took off a short knife and a set of inner armor from the wall. That's not enough, in the end he grabbed a few more handfuls of quicklime from the kitchen. This thing can captivate the eyes and be used to deal with experts. Looking at the things she had prepared, Chen Mu frowned and pondered whether there were any omissions. In fact, he doesn't consider himself a cautious and steady person. But there is no other way, the outside world is too dangerous, and there are many old ghosts, so he must be more prepared. According to my master, it wasn't like this outside before. But I don't know which old by brought bad customs, all kinds of dilemmas, all kinds of so others followed suit, and the social atmosphere changed. Everyone has similar preparations. If they don't prepare themselves, wouldn't they be at a disadvantage? Just like when he was in school in his past life, he has always been the top student in the school. It was supposed to be great, but the second guy actually secretly took extra classes in an attempt to surpass himself. There's no other way, isn't it just a remedial class? Who doesn't know yet? In the eyes of others, this scene becomes, they make up for classes first and second, why don't you have any reason not to study hard? So the whole school followed suit with make-up classes. In the end, the first was still the first, and the second was also the second. Everyone made up an extra class for no reason. Involution Chen Mu let out a light sigh and put on his inner armor. In short, it's not him who is wrong, but this world of internal competition. And that despicable initiator who took the lead in tutoring. With these thoughts in mind, he stuffed the messy small medicine bottles into his arms again. After midnight, Chen Mu arrived at the village entrance. The main reason why he chose to leave at this time is because, as a village grass, he has a good reputation in the village. If you walk during the day, it may cause considerable turbulence. Tonight, only the village chief and his second daughter Cuilian came to bid farewell. Only the village chief's family knew that he would leave tonight. The night breeze was blowing, and the corners of Cuilian's eyes were slightly red. She hesitated to speak. Chen Mu had a serious expression and a devout expression of love. He appeared to be carrying only one package with a shoulder knife, but his robe was actually filled with many things. Chen Mu, these rice and vegetable roll are convenient for you to eat on the way. The village chief sighed lightly and delivered a package to Chen Mu's hands. Chen Mu did not refuse. Leaving at this time, he also felt a bit sad in his heart. Entering this unfamiliar world, Stone Village was the first place to give him a feeling of home. Brother Chen Mu. Be careful when you're outside. I heard people outside are very bad. You're good everywhere, but you're too kind. I'm afraid you'll be bullied by those bad people outside. Cuilian wiped away her tears as she spoke, as if she had already remembered the tragic scene of Chen Mu being bullied. The village chief also felt that he should give a few words of advice upon hearing this, so he added, Cuilian is right. Chen Mu, remember not to trust the sweet words of strangers. Speaking, he didn't forget to pat Chen Mu's shoulder heavily. For some reason, Chen Mu's shoulders were particularly hard today, and his hands, which had a diaphragm, were a bit painful. Before he could figure it out, the sleeve arrow in Chen Mu's sleeve was shot out by him and fell to the ground. Chen Mu picked up the sleeve arrow with his usual expression. The sleeve arrow is a type of hidden weapon that is vicious and easy to trigger, but once fired, the opponent is defenseless. In order not to break his pure image in the hearts of the village chief and Cuilian, he calmly explained, this is a small bow and arrow with weak killing power, specifically used to shoot rabbits. There are many mountains and forests along this route, so it's necessary to find some food to eat. The village chief did not see the sleeve arrow or doubt it, and immediately nodded. At this moment, Cuilian suddenly noticed the sachet hanging around Chen Mu's waist, and her cheeks instantly turned red. That is a gift she gave to Chen Mu's brother. Many girls in the village give it away. But in the end, brother Chen Mu only took what she had given away. This indicates that Chen Mu still has her in his heart. Thinking of this, her heart became even more joyful. There seems to be a slight white mark on the sachet. She, who was a bit obsessive-compulsive, quickly approached and wanted to gently wipe away the white marks on the sachet. But just as she touched the sachet, she realized something was wrong. It seems that it's not spices inside, but something else. This is quicklime. What is brother Chen Mu doing with this? It doesn't smell good again. Seeing the innocent face of the young girl full of confusion, Chen Mu took off her sachet and calmly explained, quicklime and water can be heated. Cuilian, it's not easy to take a hot bite outside. It's very convenient for me to heat up rice and vegetable roll and cook some soup with this thing. Moreover, compared to starting a fire, using this heating method has less movement and is less likely to attract wild animals. At this point, Chen Mu's face showed a warm smile like spring sunshine. Sualian was slightly taken aback by this expression, and immediately understood something. Hot rice. Boiling soup. Chen Mu's brother used the sachet she gave to pack quicklime, probably because he felt that the hot rice and soup she made had her involvement, right? Thinking of this, Sualian couldn't help but shed tears. She regretted that she had cooked too little for brother Chen Mu in the past 6 months, only 3 meals a day. We should make an extra late-night snack and send it over at night. Send it over at night, yes, why didn't you expect it before? I'm afraid there won't be any chance in the future. Chen Mu saw that the father and daughter were becoming increasingly sad and knew that they couldn't delay any longer. He quickly clasped his fists and said, "Goodbye, village chief, Sualian, I should go now. If there is a chance to become a cultivator, I will come back again. Be careful during this period and don't take in outsiders casually." After finishing speaking, he bowed slightly to the two of them, then glanced at the stone tablet at the village entrance and turned around to set off. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Survival Desire of Qingyang Sect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Survival Desire of Qingyang Sect. During the Chinese New Year, the bandits also had to take a vacation, so Chen Mu's trip went very smoothly. 2 days later, he arrived at Fenia City, the capital of Fenia State. Fenia Prefecture is one of the 24 prefectures of Yan State, with a territory of thousands of miles and 36 subordinate cities. There are also counties under the city. The stone village where Chen Mu stayed is also within the scope of Feniazu. According to the information obtained by Chen Mu earlier, Qingyang Mountain, where Qingyang Sect is located, is not far from Fenia City. As a major sect that has been passed down for thousands of years, Qingyang Sect is undoubtedly famous in Fenia City. He should be able to know the specific location with just a little inquiry. In fact, he had thought about finding a small sect to practice peacefully and not getting involved in any robbery-related matters. However, this cultivation world is too dangerous. He is equipped with a small assistant, and his cultivation speed is bound to be very fast. In the eyes of other cultivators, it is difficult not to associate with him. If you encounter a strong person with malicious intentions, the consequences will be very serious. And even if there are no bad people, there are still many accidents in the cultivation world. It's normal to die prematurely midway. And becoming a person who should be robbed, not to mention the great advantage in terms of resources, just having the full protection of Qingyang Sect is enough to make him take risks. As long as we safely get through the early stages, everything will be easy to say in the future. As the state capital, Fenia City is bustling with cars and people, far from being comparable to the county town near Shitu village. Chen Mu walked on the street with a package on her back, her long hair covering half of her cheeks. In such a large city, one should be more low-key. Especially for someone like him who looks extraordinary. After strolling purposefully on the street, Chen Mu finally arrived at a restaurant. This restaurant is called Jushin Tower, with a height of 5 floors and a unique architectural structure. The decoration is also extremely luxurious, and compared to the surrounding buildings, it stands out like a flock of chickens. The tavern was originally a gathering place for news, also known as the Jushin Tower. Although he had not yet entered, he had a 70.8% confidence in hearing information about the Qingyang Sect in his heart. Entering the restaurant, a well-behaved and elegantly dressed young woman immediately welcomed her. Seeing her with an extremely professional smile on her face, Chen Mu knew she was a service staff member in the restaurant, so she casually said, "Just give me some of your restaurant's specialty dishes." Well, with a posture of frequently visiting high-end restaurants. "Okay, distinguished guest, please come upstairs." The simple and elegant woman made a gesture of invitation while speaking. Chen Mu nodded slightly and then slowly went upstairs. It has to be said that both the internal style and service personnel of this Jushin tower are quite skilled. If he were really born in Stone Village, he might show his fear when he first comes to such a place. But as a traveler, this place is just average in his eyes, and it still lacks some meaning compared to those 5-star hotels in his past life. Led to the second floor by a simple and elegant woman, Chen Mu chose to sit in the center of the hall. Young master, we have recently received a new batch of Jingguai meat from Juxinlu. Eating it not only prolongs life, but also enhances masculinity. The simple and elegant woman's tone was calm, her expression calm, as if she was telling a very ordinary thing. Chen Mu was quite surprised upon hearing this. He did his homework before coming. Phineas City is certainly a big city, but after all, it is a mortal city with thin spiritual energy. Any cultivator who has some pursuit will not stay in the mortal city. And the spirit and monsters are all cultivators. Even if Phineas City has the ability to kill spirit monsters, it will definitely be regarded as a treasure. How could it let the meat of spirit monsters flow into restaurants that anyone can enter, so that ordinary people can taste it? The simple and elegant woman noticed the change in Chen Mu's expression and smiled sweetly, saying, "My guest, you just arrived at our Phineas City, right? You may not know that in previous years, our restaurant would never have been able to obtain such precious ingredients as Jingguai meat. But this year is different. More than a month ago, the immortals of Qingyang Sect carried out a major cleanup of the entire Qingyang mountains, killing hundreds of mountain and wild monsters. The immortals don't need so much weird meat, so many have flowed into the mortal world. And as the closest big city to Qingyang Mountain, Phineas City naturally enjoys great glory. If the meat is kept for a long time, the spiritual energy will be lost, and the high-ranking officials and nobles in the city cannot digest so much meat for a while, so we asked our restaurant to purchase some. Cluck, my guest, I bet in the nearby states and all the big cities, there are only one restaurant that can provide weird meat, and we are the only one." At this point, the simple and elegant woman's expression became very proud. And when she mentioned Qingyang Sect, it happened to hit Chen Mu's chest. Surprisingly, I had the opportunity to taste the strange meat. It seems that I have come to the right place. After praising him, he took the opportunity to say, "This girl, to be honest, I am from another state and have heard about the name of Qingyang Sect for a long time. I am preparing to join Qingyang Sect, but I don't know where exactly Qingyang Sect is located." The simple and elegant woman did not feel surprised upon hearing this. At this time, approaching the day when Qingyang Sect is recruiting its disciples, those who come to Phineas City and have the confidence to enter the Jushin Tower are mostly young people seeking immortality. "Just call me Xiaoyan, young master." The simple and elegant woman covered her mouth and chuckled lightly, then continued, "Young master, if it had been before, I really couldn't tell where the Qingyang Sect was located in the Qingyang Mountains. After all, once you enter the Qingyang Mountains, you still have to go through 9 twists and turns, and one mistake can lead to losing your direction. But this year is different." Speaking of which, Xiaoyan paused for a moment and deliberately played a trick. Chen Mu smiled faintly and immediately took out some broken silver and placed it on the table. These service personnel are very clear about their positioning, and for them, pleasing a future cultivator is not very meaningful. It is still practical to make more money. Seeing the broken silver, Xiaoyan's eyes lit up and she quickly said, "Hee, young master, no one expected it. This year, the immortals of Qingyang Sect surprisingly came out to repair roads. The road being repaired is not just an ordinary one, but a main road that leads directly from Qingyang Zongshan Gate to Phineas City. It's called Tongxian Road. It's over 200 miles. A road of over 200 miles. Chen Mu vaguely understood something. Xiaoyan continued, "Over there, alas, in the past few years, there have always been seekers of immortality lost on the road. Some are unlucky, encountering monsters in the mountains and fields, and one mistake can lead to death without a complete body. This year is good. Phoenix City has a direct connection to Qingyang Sect. Not to mention being a normal person, it's just a donkey walking forward with its eyes closed, and it can also reach Qingyang Sect smoothly. Chen Mu's eyes twitched slightly when she heard this. Slaying spirits and monsters, repairing the main road. The true intention of Qingyang Sect is already very clear. The person who should be robbed will go to Qingyang Sect this year, and they are also afraid of accidents on the way. What if that person gets lost and doesn't want to come to Qingyang Sect? What if it's eaten by some inconspicuous monster? So, they directly slaughtered the spirit monsters and built roads. Highlight a word from the inside out. Steady. This is full of survival desire. Qingyang Sect, it's a bit interesting. Chen Mu chuckled inwardly. Young master, do you want some weird meat? Xiao Yan asked cautiously. Upon learning the news of Qingyang Sect, Chen Mu was in a great mood and immediately responded by saying, "Give me one." "Okay, I'll arrange for someone to prepare now." After Xiao Yan left, Chen Mu realized that most of the guests around were discussing the matter of Qingyang Sect. "I just went to see Tongxian Road, what a big move. Qingyang Sect truly deserves to be the leader of Feniazu. They know that it is not easy for us to seek immortality, and are willing to empathize with us. Yes, other sects are not so approachable. Even if you have talent, you still need to climb the Sword Mountain and the Sea of Fire to successfully reach our Fire Spirit Sect in Huiyan Prefecture. As far as I know, dozens of people are buried on the road every year. It's just that the people of the Fire Spirit Sect don't have feelings for each other, and they say they don't have any immortal fate. It's okay not to go to such a sect. Brother Wang, it's right for you to come to our Feniazu." The person surnamed Wang seemed to be drunk, and as he spoke, he burst into tears. "Oh, my brother died on the road back then. Fire Spirit Sect. Humph. Today it is indifferent to me, and one day I will surely make it unable to climb high. When I become the foundation building immortal, I must go to the Fire Spirit Sect and ask them if I regret it." A few people with clear minds next to them quickly comforted and said, "Brother Wang, stop talking nonsense. It's too small. The pattern of the Fire Spirit Sect is too small. Right. Pattern. Open-mindedness. They're all small. Qingyang Sect sympathizes with us, and I dare not forget it. Brotherly, I was born a member of the Qingyang Sect, and died a ghost of the Qingyang Sect. Woo-woo." Listening to these discussions, Chen Mu gave a faint smile. These people are really overthinking. However, to be honest, the person who should be robbed has not yet arrived, and Qingyang Sect has already expended so much energy. If the person who should be robbed really enters the Qingyang Sect, why not confess like a living ancestor? Thinking of this, Chen Mu's heart was filled with passion. Knock unconscious. Be sure to knock out. Whoever fights with him, knock him out. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Waiting for one person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Waiting for one person. Leaving the Jushin Tower, Chen Mu headed straight to the east gate of Phoenix City. After leaving the east gate, he did indeed see a straight road. The avenue is 5 meters wide and stretches all the way to the end of the sky. It's a pity not to drive on such a good road. Chen Mu murmured in a low voice. There are still many young people like him around observing this path to immortality, and praises are constantly heard. Chen Mu quietly looked at these people and did not find anyone with particularly outstanding temperament, like someone who should be robbed. He estimated that if there were really anyone to rob, they wouldn't appear among these people. After all, those who can arrive at Phoenix City now, as long as they have no mental problems, it is basically impossible to be late. As someone looked towards him, he quickly turned around and left. Before going to Qingyang Sect, he didn't want to have any interaction with these people. It is difficult for him to explain the reason for being late when he meets in the sect in the future. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed, and only 1 day was left before Qingyang Gate opened its mountain gate to recruit disciples. That morning, hundreds of people gathered on the first floor of Jushin Tower. Some of these people are preparing to go to Qingyang's sect to seek immortality, as well as the relatives and friends of those who seek immortality. At this moment, everyone's gaze converged on the center of the hall. There, a young man dressed in luxurious attire stood on the table, with a passionate expression on his face, exuding the power of a leader. Everyone. Tomorrow is the day when Qingyang sect opens its mountain gate. In theory, I shouldn't waste everyone's time reuniting with family. But there are some things I have to say. Speaking of which, the noble young master paused and sold a trick. Immediately below, there was a person who said, "Young lord, feel free to say anything." Chen Mu, sitting on the second floor, was eating breakfast while listening to the shouting downstairs. Upon hearing this, he gave a smile. No wonder that person has so much face. With just one sentence, he summoned so many people over and turned out to be the young city lord. I think it's a bit inappropriate for us people to go tomorrow. What Qingyang sect has done for us in the past few months, I think these people who have been staying in Phoenix City all year round can see clearly. Kill the spirit monsters and cultivate the immortal path. As a major figure, Qingyang sect is so kind to us mortals who have not yet entered the realm of cultivation. Shouldn't we just express ourselves? After the noble young master finished speaking, tears appeared in the corner of his eyes, clearly moving him to the point where he couldn't bear it. Don't be fooled by what kind of young lord he is, but he has many fathers and sons. He is just one of them, and his status is not that high. And the cultivators will always have absolute discourse power in this world. For him, Qingyang sect is also unattainable. Everyone below nodded in agreement upon hearing the words. For them, the recent actions of Qingyang sect are nothing more than the emperor leading horses for ordinary people, making them feel flattered. It's okay if the young lord doesn't say it, but when they say it, they all feel that it should be expressed. But how should we express it specifically? Young lord, do you have any good ideas? Yeah, we can't come up with anything good either. Someone asked again. The noble young master smiled at the words. The ordinary object of Qingyang sect is definitely not worth it. The Qingyang sect, which has a structured sect, will not accept things from us new disciples. But we can let Qingyang sect see our sincerity. Treasures have value. True feelings are priceless. I have decided. After this gathering, we will depart for Qingyang sect, kneel in front of Qingyang sect, and wait until tomorrow when Qingyang sect's mountain gate opens. As soon as these words were spoken, many people immediately followed suit. Good idea. You're right. Qingyang sect treats us like this, and we should also express our sincerity in seeking immortality. Young lord. I'll go back and pack my things now. Hundreds of people dispersed in unison. Seeing this scene, the noble young master smiled with satisfaction. He has average qualifications, and in order to achieve better development in Qingyang sect, he must find ways from other sources. Now he is still in Phoenix City, and everyone should give him some face. He can take this opportunity to flatter the Qingyang sect. Are the fast horses ready? The noble young master said to the servant beside him. Be ready, Let's set off immediately. I want to be the first to kneel in front of Qingyang sect's mountain gate. Upstairs, Chen Mu calmly ate breakfast. Today is the 6th day of the Lunar New Year. On the 7th day of the Qingyang sect, the mountain gate was opened and disciples were recruited. The person who should be robbed arrived on the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. It's better for these people to go ahead, but they helped the Qingyang sect screen ahead of time. Brotherly, let's go quickly too. These locals went to Qingyang sect first. If we go again tomorrow, it will seem like we have no sincerity. Brother Zhang is right. Let's go too. Some young people on the second floor heard the commotion below and got up to pack their luggage, afraid of falling behind. Highlight one word. Volume. Half a day later. Inside the main hall of Qingyang Peak. The head of Qingyang's sect, Qingyang, sits on the throne. Below him sat 7 people, including the Grand Elder of Qingyang's sect, the Second Elder, and the 5 elders of the 5 meridians of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. The expressions of everyone were surprisingly consistent, with a solemn and dignified expression. Now, with the appearance of a great enemy, it seemed as if the sky was about to collapse. Other members of the sect may not be able to imagine that their sect leader and elders have been sitting here for 7 full days. There is no way, it is related to the life and death of the sect. Even if they have a good heart, it is inevitable that they will be nervous. Sitting together can alleviate some tension to some extent. Needles can be heard falling inside the main hall, and the 8 people are as motionless as clay sculptures. After a moment, Elder Shuru of Shulingen couldn't hold his tension and turned his head to look at Qingyang. Senior brother, it seems that there is something inappropriate about repairing the road nowadays. Those people in Phineas City have already knelt at the entrance of the mountain. In this situation, who would be late as soon as she spoke, everyone else's faces slightly changed, and the atmosphere unconsciously suppressed a lot. So, it's not appropriate to kill the spirit monsters. Without obstruction, it's also impossible to be late. Elder Mu Qing of the Mu Lingzhen lineage followed suit. Upon hearing this, Qingyang suddenly pinched her long white beard, clearly feeling uneasy inside. But still pretending to be calm. No problem, that person will come anyway. We are just doing this to ensure that he won't have any accidents on the way. Just. The chance of being late may be lower. If there is really no one coming the day after tomorrow, then those who come tomorrow will be trained one by one and all will be given priority. What if no one comes tomorrow? The elder, who had always been at odds with Qingyang, had a disagreement. So this year, all the newly recruited disciples will be focused on training, which will not exhaust my Qingyang sect's 1000-year heritage. Qingyang made a resounding sound, with a hint of anger in her tone. He firmly believes in the prophecies left by his ancestors. Qingyang's sect has the calamity of annihilating the sect, which means that his sect leader will be in danger of death. So no matter how cautious you are, you can't be too careful. Everyone fell silent upon hearing this, while constantly praying in their hearts. Pray for someone to come to Qingyang's sect on the 8th day of the 8th lunar month. Defeat the calamity of annihilating the Qingyang sect. At the same time, outside the mountain gate, hundreds of people knelt neatly, each with a devout expression. No one could have imagined the leader of Qingyang's sect, along with several elders, are all waiting for someone who is destined to be late. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Is him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 is him. On the 6th day of the Lunar New Year, all the seekers of immortals in Phineas City knelt before Qingyang's sect. Due to the severe internal competition, Chen Mu had to leave on the evening of the 6th day of the Lunar New Year. There was no other way. He was also afraid that the unruly actions of Qingyang's sect and those people would cause the real robbers to arrive at Qingyang's sect ahead of schedule. After walking 40 to 50 miles along Tongxian Road, Chen Mu found a good location. On the left side of this road is a not too steep slope, covered with half a person high weeds. On the right, there is a clear stream. Chen Mu found a huge rock nearby and placed it on the slope, then hid behind it. From his position, one can clearly observe the pedestrians passing by on Tongxian Road. Well, an excellent ambush location. Due to the significant impact of this matter, even if no one could see it, Chen Mu dared not be distracted at all. One night passed without anyone passing by. The sun rises, and the road to immortality is quiet and frightening, with no ghost shadows. Chen Mu couldn't help but sigh. Who would have thought that on the day when Qingyang's sect truly opened the mountain gate to recruit disciples, there was not a single person on the path to immortality? Actually, this is easy to understand. What a big deal is joining the immortal sect. It's much more important than the college entrance examination in my past life. For the sake of safety, the seekers of immortals from other places arrived at Fenyu City early on. It's a bit exaggerated, even half a year ago. So, the person who went to Qingyang Sect yesterday is likely to be everyone under normal circumstances. Although Chen Mu thought so in his heart, he still dared not show any negligence and stared at the empty road from beginning to end. Everything else is easy to say, but I regret not bringing some melon seeds to pass the time. Time passes by minute by second. More than 100 seekers of immortality in Qingyang Sect have already been brought into the sect. However, Qingyang and the 7 elders did not neglect this matter. After allowing the deacons in the sect to temporarily settle these new disciples, they each sat on a platform not far from the mountain gate, one chair at a time. From this platform, they can overlook the mountain gate 100 meters below. It's already noon on the 7th day of the Lunar New Year. The 8 of them, disregarding their own identities, stared at the mountain gate below with their eyes wide open like copper bells, without blinking, afraid of missing any details. If someone who is not aware of this scene sees it, they probably think they are sneaking a peek at a peerless fairy bathing. No one really. On the other side, Chen Mu was hiding behind a stone and was almost asleep, not even seeing a single figure. On the evening of the 7th day of the Lunar New Year, late at night on the 7th day of the Lunar New Year, in the blink of an eye, it was the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. Chen Mu didn't sleep for 2 nights, and blood had already appeared in his eyes, but he still didn't dare to be distracted at all. The perseverance of a cultivator, he still has it. As noon approached, 2 figures, 1 person and 1 horse, appeared faintly in the distance. Seeing that 1 person and 1 horse, Chen Mu was so excited that he almost jumped out of the grass. "Good guy, I finally caught you." His mother, "You are late so long, and you are still slow. With your attitude, you can fix a fart." He slightly arched his slightly tingling body and was ready to hit the stick. Knocking on this silly stick, he has no psychological burden. The person and horse were getting closer and closer, and unconsciously they were within his 30-meter range. Chen Mu gradually saw the person's appearance. This is a young man about his age, with an ordinary appearance. At this moment, he has a depressed face and is riding on a horse, swaying and swaying. Chen Mu even felt that he might not need to hit the stick, this kid would have to fall off the horse. Puff. As if to confirm his conjecture, the boy really fell off the horse. Chen Mu hid behind the boulder, hesitating whether to go and see the situation. However, before he could appear from behind the boulder, the sound of wailing suddenly came from below. "Woo-woo. I'm not human. Qingyang Sect has built such a road, and I'm actually late. I really don't deserve to cultivate immortality. I'm so damn it. What face do I have to go to Qingyang Sect?" Pop. Pop. Following closely behind was the sound of slapping. After a burst of crying and howling, the boy got up from the ground and then rode his horse. "Turn around, let's go. Let's go. Let's go." This. Chen Mu remained speechless for a moment. No wonder this young man was swaying and struggling in his heart before. Watching the lonely figure gradually drift away, Chen Mu sighed in her heart. This little brother unknowingly missed an opportunity. However, with his personality, missing this opportunity may not necessarily be a bad thing. Who can explain life's circumstances clearly? After seeing off this naive person, Chen Mu continued to wait. It was soon noon. At this moment, he couldn't help but start to doubt. Is the person who should be robbed myself? Not so much, right? To be honest, let him go to Qingyang Sect to enjoy preferential treatment. That's no problem. But if he were to resolve any major calamity of annihilating the sect, the pressure is a bit high. It shouldn't be me. I'm not from this world. Master can't count my destiny, can people from 1,000 years ago count it? Not very likely. Wait a little longer. Just get stuck in the Qingyang Sect before Zisher. Chen Mu secretly made up his mind. Time passed by little, and in the afternoon, another figure appeared at the end of the sky. Chen Mu regained his energy. That person was alone, both calm and steady, but his pace was unusually steady. As the distance approached, Chen Mu's eyes narrowed slightly. This person is wearing a black outfit and seems to be carrying a long knife on his back. Apart from that, he has no other luggage. Compared to the previous person, it is obviously much more efficient. Getting closer, he noticed that the person's clothes were still faintly stained with blood, as if they had experienced a fierce battle. Looking at that face again, Chen Mu was stunned. This person should be around 18 or 19 years old, with slightly dark skin, but extremely straight facial features, especially those eyes, which have double pupils and an inexplicable domineering aura. This is a natural anomaly. Definitely not an ordinary person. Look at his expression again. Although his face was full of fatigue, there was a hint of composure and perseverance beyond his age, which was completely different from the fairyland seekers he had met a few days ago. It was the second time he had met someone like him who could tell from his appearance that he was extraordinary. The first time was with his master. It's him. It's him. As the person got closer, Chen Mu could see more clearly. He is not someone who judges people by their appearance, after all, he himself is a vivid negative example. But this young man is too special, exuding a special aura of, I will be strong in the future, all over his body. Affected by a special aura and at the right time, he could almost conclude that the resolute young man walking on the immortal road below is the person who should be robbed waiting for Qingyang sect. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Routine and Anti-Routine Teaching. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Routine and Anti-Routine Teaching. Chen Mu took a slow deep breath and then held his breath. Although this young man looks very extraordinary, he still needs to hit the stick if he needs to. No big deal, the future immortal emperor owes you a favor. Just fainting for an extra day. You can make a steady profit without losing. Pop pop, the sound of steady footsteps was getting closer and closer, and Chen Mu lay low in the grass like a cheetah locked in its prey. However, at that moment, the boy suddenly stopped in his tracks. At this moment, the boy, the boulder, and Chen Mu had just formed a straight line. Chen Mu dared not breathe and her heart began to accelerate. Cheers and cheers. A few seconds later, a sound of scooping water came from below, and Chen Mu finally realized what had happened. The boy should be thirsty and is scooping water from the stream with his hands to drink. The animal world speaks well, and animals have the worst alertness when drinking water. This is a great opportunity. Chen Mu slightly poked his head out, and as expected, the boy was drinking water by the stream. A gentle breeze blew by, and Chen Mu's breathing became slightly imperceptible amidst the wind. At this moment, his eyes were extremely sharp, staring fixedly at the young man the back of the neck. He has been practicing martial arts with his master for a year, and he is very clear about which acupoints are located and where they will make people unconscious. Ms. Made up, please do not imitate. Bow body. Charge up. Another gust of wind is rising. Chen Mu's legs suddenly exerted force, and he flew out from behind the stone like a big bird. The wind howled in his ears, and at that moment, he felt like he had merged into the wind. The leap of faith. What is Kung Fu? Kung Fu is honed. This leap, it takes an ordinary person 20 years of hard work. Who can stop it? Zhou Jinglei was drinking water by the stream, and for some reason, a warning sounded in his heart. Looking at the flowing stream in front of me, there was a faint flash of light and shadow. Due to constantly wandering on the brink of danger, his vigilance was extremely strong, and he suddenly sensed a crisis. His muscles all over his body almost reflexively tightened. Bang! The pebbles under my feet shattered instantly under the powerful force. Zhou Jinglei quickly grabbed the handle behind his back with his right hand. Then suddenly turn around. The whole action was completed in one go, just like his name, as fast as lightning. Hello, brother. Chen Mu landed steadily and scratched his head, his expression somewhat awkward. He had originally planned to launch a surprise attack, but in the air, he noticed that the young man suddenly froze all over. Immediately after, the momentum transformed from an unprepared lamb to a ferocious tiger. Plus the crushed pebbles at the opponent's feet make him deeply aware of even if the other party is not in good form at this time, their strength is much stronger than him. After all, this is a world of immortality and chivalry. Although his strength is almost at the peak of mortals, there are many people in this world who are not mortals at all. It's like those who come from immortal cultivation families and have been treated with various medicinal baths and pills since childhood. Even without cultivation, their physical strength has already exceeded the limits of normal people. This young man is clearly such a person. To deal with such a person, his hope of achieving success with that blow just now is only 20%. So in a fit of urgency, he quickly stopped his leap of faith and landed steadily on the ground. Zhou Jinglei did not relax his vigilance as a result. He still held the handle tightly in his right hand, his gaze like a knife, scanning back and forth on Chen Mu. In the wilderness, a person suddenly jumps out, anyone must be careful. Chen Mu took 2 steps back when he saw this and explained helplessly, "Brother, you misunderstood. I have no ill intentions. To be ashamed, I am a seeker of immortality who is preparing to join the Qingyang sect, but now I have missed the date when Qingyang sect will recruit disciples. If it were in previous years, I would have shamelessly gone. But this year Qingyang sect killed the spirits and monsters, and even built such a path to immortality. I was actually late. I feel a bit embarrassed to go to Qingyang sect again. I was originally hesitating whether to turn back on the roadside, but suddenly saw you, brother, so I became a little emotional." "Excuse me, brother. Are you also preparing to join the Qingyang sect? If so, why don't we go together as companions?" Chen Mu's cheeks blushed slightly, as if she was feeling ashamed. The meaning behind his words is easy to understand. It's like being late for school in a past life. If there is only one person in the class who is late and is punished to stand outside the classroom, it is really uncomfortable. But if there was such a silly criticism that came later than me, it would be much better in my heart. With the previous silly criticism as a real-life comparison, his words sound reasonable. Zhou Jinglei looked up and down at the person in front of him, gradually relaxing his grip on the handle of the knife. The person in front of me is young, dressed in simple attire, without any evil energy on his body, and doesn't seem like any villain. More importantly, this person carried a knife around his waist and never unsheathed it from beginning to end. If he really wants to be detrimental to himself, how could he jump out barehanded? Perhaps he is just a late seeker of immortality. With this in mind, he completely released his grip on the handle of the knife and coldly replied, "I am a seeker who is preparing to worship the Qingyang sect." Chen Mu looked surprised upon hearing this. "With my brother as my companion, I feel embarrassed to go to Qingyang sect. May I ask your name, brother?" "Zhou Jinglei. My name is Chen Mu, cough cough. Actually, I don't want to be late either, but I encountered a mountain bandit on my way to Qingyang city. It wasn't until 2 days ago that I finally got out of trouble." Chen Mu explained a sentence. He had already thought of this reason, originally intended to tell the people of Qingyang sect, but now he has to first tell Zhou Jinglei. This can avoid leaving a bad impression on the other party. After all, both sides will continue to interact within the sect in the future. Zhou Jinglei's expression softened slightly, and he nodded before speaking again. In fact, there is a hint of disdain deep down in his heart. The person in front of me is thinking too simply. I have really arrived at Qingyang sect. How could they hear so many reasons from you? Being late means being late. Even if you encounter a mountain bandit, it's still late, which only indicates that you don't have a divine fate. As for myself, haha. There lies talent. Not to mention being late, just choose any day to go to Qingyang sect, and Qingyang sect will happily accept you. Of course, these words are too hurtful for him to say openly. When going out, if you can avoid offending others, then do not offend them proactively. This is the principle of interpersonal behavior. On the other hand, Chen Mu was also secretly plotting. Since hitting the stick directly failed, we can only rely on intelligence. Thinking of this, he touched the kettle inside the package, which contained a pot of good wine. This is one of his henchmen. Just take it out and give it to Zhou Jinglei to drink, that definitely won't work. As the saying goes, being attentive to others is like stealing. This sentence tells ordinary people to be careful and cautious when facing people who are attentive to nothing. At the same time, it is also telling the perpetrators that they must not be idle and attentive when preparing to do bad things, in order to avoid alerting the other party. Being attentive to others is not enough, but being attentive to others is enough. I'll ask a few questions and you can help me clarify. In this case, I'll treat you to a glass of wine. Well, it's logical and reasonable. Chen Mu didn't rush to start the plan, but followed Zhou Jinglei for a while. It's difficult for him not to want to be with himself as two people are on the same road. However, Zhou Jinglei was very cautious and always kept a 1-meter distance from Chen Mu. After the two of them walked for 2 or 3 miles, Chen Mu finally spoke up, "Brother Zhou, I see that you have an extraordinary demeanor. I don't think you come from an ordinary family background, unlike me, who was born in an ordinary village and knows very little about the affairs of the immortal sect." Zhou Jinglei did not respond. He doesn't really want to deal with this person who is destined to have no intersection in the future. Chen Mu continued shamelessly, "Do you dare to ask Brother Zhou if he knows how many immortals there are in the Qingyang sect, and if there are legendary foundation builders?" Upon hearing the 4 words, "building a strong foundation," Zhou Jinglei casually smiled and instinctively replied, "Building a foundation is not considered a strong one. Many true disciples of Qingyang sect have the ability to build foundations, let alone elders." Upon hearing this, Chen Mu's face suddenly showed a realization, then he asked a few silly questions, and the whole process looked like he had never seen the world before. This greatly satisfies Zhou Jinglei's vanity. Even though Zhou Jinglei was precocious, he was only a teenager of 18 or 19 years old, with a deep desire for expression in his heart. Seeing that the time was almost ripe, Chen Mu took out the wine jug from the package. "Brother Zhou, thank you for your answer. Otherwise, when I arrived at Qingyang sect, I'm afraid I would have caused a lot of jokes. This wine was stolen from the bandits' den by me, brewed from fresh fruits in the mountains. It is refreshing and sweet, with an endless aftertaste. Brother Zhou, why don't you try it?" Speaking, Chen Mu naturally opened the lid of the teapot and presented it to Zhou Jinglei. Smelling the aroma of wine, Zhou Jinglei instinctively wanted to take the wine jug, but reached halfway and stopped in mid-air. When going out, one should not drink alcohol handed over by strangers. This is something his mother taught him 3 times when he was a child. At this thought, he pushed the wine jug back. "I don't drink alcohol." After speaking, he turned around and continued on his journey. Chen Mu's smile stiffened slightly, and he couldn't help but praise her. "You truly deserve to be the one who deserves to be robbed. At this age, with this sense of vigilance, one will surely become a great weapon in the future. There are too many tricks when going out. Only by adapting to constant changes can we avoid being deceived by others." Taking back the wine jug, Chen Mu looked up and drank the wine in one gulp. There is a mechanism on the wine pot, and when the other party receives it, they will trigger the mechanism, and the specially made medicine will mix with the wine. This kind of medicine can quickly make people tired and produce a strong sense of drowsiness. If the other party doesn't answer, then there's no need. Drinking it yourself can help the other person relax their guard. After drinking the wine, Chen Mu walked closer and apologized, "Brother Zhou, I was a bit presumptuous just now, but that wine is indeed good. Don't misunderstand." Seeing that Chen Mu's eyes were also quite sincere after drinking, Zhou Jinglei waved his hand and his tone became slightly gentler than before. "It's okay. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Brother Zhou, you are still too young. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Brother Zhou, you are still too young. The two continued on their journey, getting closer and closer to Qingyang sect. Chen Mu's speed is getting slower and slower. Zhou Jinglei seemed to have driven a long way before, and his speed also slowed down quite a bit. Chen Mu suggested taking a break, but Zhou Jinglei did not refuse. The two of them sat on either side of the road like this. At this moment, Chen Mu took out a large piece of fat and lean raw meat from the package, then cut it into half-fist-sized pieces with a knife. Finally, he used a branch to pierce through it, started a fire in place, and started a barbecue. The branches flipped over, and the oil splashes seeped out from the grilled meat, making a delicious and sizzling sound. Then he took out various spices from his bag and sprinkled them. The aroma of grilled meat mixed with the aroma of spices, which was truly tempting. Chen Mu glanced at Zhou Jinglei on the other side of the road. The Adam's apple rolled and looked like it was swallowing saliva. This kid didn't bring any luggage, and with that tired expression on his face, he probably hasn't eaten anything for a long time, right? Humph. I don't believe it. A young person can have such strong determination. Chen Mu let out a cold snort and continued to barbecue. However, when the meat was almost burnt, Zhou Jinglei did not take the initiative to make any requests. Under duress, he could only ask, "Brother Zhou, you've been running around all this way. I think you're also hungry, right? I can't eat this barbecue alone, why not?" However, to his surprise, Zhou Jinglei turned his head and said calmly, "Brother Chen, you're welcome, but I don't like to eat such greasy things." Good guy. Chen Mu exclaimed in her heart, good guy. With the previous wine as a prelude, this kid is still not fooled. Oil and salt won't enter. After cursing in his heart, Chen Mu picked up the grilled meat and started eating it viciously. There are 5 pieces of meat on this skewer, and the first one contains something. He started eating from the 5th piece and was already full after eating 4 pieces, which outsiders couldn't even tell. If given to Zhou Jinglei to eat, he would have to change the way he takes the skewers, and Zhou Jinglei would have to start eating from the first piece every minute. Unfortunately, no matter how deep his tricks are, he won't be fooled by thunder this week. Toast, don't eat, fine. It seems that we still need to use strength. But we need to change our strategy. Chen Mu fell into contemplation. After finishing the barbecue, the two of them had almost rested, so they continued on their journey. Chen Mu did not follow directly behind Zhou Jinglei, but only half a position behind him. This ensures that you are always within Zhou Jinglei's line of sight from beginning to end. There's no way, this kid has a strong sense of vigilance. He completely falls behind him and instead becomes even more cautious. Chen Mu no longer stared at Zhou Jinglei's neck. Master once said that some people in the martial arts world have a 6th sense, which can not only sense the evil thoughts of others, but also predict danger in advance. The best proof is that Zhou Jinglei sensed a leap in his previous faith. So, we must never stare at the vulnerable parts of Zhou Jinglei, let alone aim for anything. You have to make a sudden move unintentionally. The two of them chatted as they hurried along, while Chen Mu kept talking about some unnecessary things to distract Zhou Jinglei's attention. In fact, even he himself doesn't know when he will take action. Because once the timing of the action is determined, when it is too late to take action, the body will unconsciously become nervous, causing the other party to be alert. Only by completely relaxing in this way can Zhou Jinglei's 6th sense be concealed. Time passed by minute by second, and an hour later, the outline of a mountain range appeared in the distance. According to Chen Mu's estimation, there are only about 20.30 miles left from Qingyang sect. However, he still maintains a relaxed state. After walking another 700 or 800 meters, Chen Mu was asking Zhou Jinglei about some basic knowledge about cultivating immortals. Halfway through, Zhou Jinglei just took one step. But he didn't take a step. In an instant, he fell completely behind Zhou Jinglei. At this moment, his right hand was like a blessing to the soul, without the need for his brain to give commands, so he lifted himself up and slammed heavily at Zhou Jinglei's neck. Lingxi palm. And when he attacks with his right hand, he still says what he should say, and his voice doesn't even fluctuate at all. As if that hand had nothing to do with him. This sudden attack, Chen Mu himself was amazed. The ability to seize opportunities, the ease of doing bad things. Not being a killer would be a huge loss for the assassin world. Bang! With a muffled sound, Zhou Jinglei was completely unprepared and received a heavy blow. Chen Mu's spirit lifted. It's done. Haha. However, a terrible scene has happened. After receiving this sharp palm, Zhou Jinglei stumbled forward a few steps but it didn't fall down. But instead, stand firm in your body. Ah. This. I'm dx at nmx dx. What is this human suffering? Chen Mu was greatly frightened. His palm power is not small, even if he is not an ordinary person, he cannot bear it. I didn't expect the thunder this week to be even stronger than he thought. Play with snake skin. What to do? Vote in. Watching Zhou Jinglei quickly turn around. Chen Mu was in a hurry and came up with a clever idea. He quickly withdrew his right hand, which was nowhere to be placed, and then covered his neck. Ah! With a scream, Chen Mu's eyes became extremely alert and he began to look around. Brother Zhou. Someone is attacking. Zhou Jinglei also covered his neck. After feeling a heavy blow to the back of the neck, he instinctively felt that Chen Mu was ambushing. But when I turned around and saw Chen Mu covering his neck, I didn't know if it was because he was a bit confused from being beaten, so his brain went blank for a second. As Zhou Jinglei's eyes gradually regained their clarity, Chen Mu also knew that such a naive trick could not deceive this cautious young man. It seems that it's not enough without some blood. As the situation was about to escalate beyond control, Chen Mu's heart was filled with anger, and she pinched her right thumb hard. The skin on the back of the neck was instantly torn, and a lot of fresh blood flowed out. After feeling his right hand completely wet, Chen Mu withdrew it and glanced at it. Blood. So much blood. Brother Zhou, I heard that some monsters like to play tricks on people. Have we encountered this kind of monster? Chen Mu looked at the blood on his hand with a slightly frightened expression. After seeing the blood in Chen Mu's hand, Zhou Jinglei was finally shocked. I can't help but wonder, have you really encountered any mischievous monsters who love to tease people? But it's not right, hasn't it been cleaned up before? A fish caught in a net. Before he could fully react, Chen Mu's pupils suddenly contracted violently in front of him, as if he had seen something terrifying behind him. Noticing the change in Chen Mu's gaze, Zhou Jinglei's body was covered in sweat and hair, and an indescribable sense of crisis suddenly arrived. I dare not show any negligence at all. He suddenly drew his long sword, turned around, and slashed straight towards nothingness. Ah! At this moment, there was another scream from behind, and Zhou Jinglei was confused. Then came a muffled bang. He only felt a numbness in the back of his neck, his vision blurred instantly, and then his eyes turned black before he fell to the ground. Seeing Zhou Jinglei finally fainting, Chen Mu sat directly on the ground. This operation gave him the same thrill of watching 7 or 8 horror movies alone in the middle of the night. Taking out the kettle and pouring a big gulp of water, Chen Mu finally eased his tense emotions. After nervousness comes joy. Watching Zhou Jinglei fall to the ground with his face facing the ground, the corner of his mouth slightly curled up, revealing the winner's smile. Oh, brother Zhou, you're still too young. Insert some words here, talk about the settings, there are too many people talking about it. The setting of this plot is for the protagonist to replace the only person who should be robbed. Let me explain some things that are said to be cautious and not risky. The protagonist's minor assistance is to absorb aftershocks, not to give away all the treasures of the sign in technique. It is destined to appear in public next to some strong individuals, and it is not feasible to practice secretly. Moreover, I did not impose any hidden cultivation or hidden qualifications on the protagonist in the early stages of my setting. How can the protagonist, with ordinary qualifications, enter any sect? As long as their strength improves by leaps and bounds, their qualifications can even improve. How should those strong ones explain this? So, the protagonist must have someone on death row in the early stages. 2. There are also those who say they will not knock out the person who should be robbed and enter the sect with him. There are only so many resources in a sect, and if two people are divided, relying on their strength to cope with the calamity will actually reduce the possibility of the protagonist blocking the calamity. Not to mention the obvious difference in qualifications between the two, the protagonist's perspective does not know what Qingyang sect will do. And when the protagonist becomes the one who should be robbed, he can take care of another person, which can occupy absolute initiative. 3. Saying that the means will be seen by Qingyang sect. From the perspective of Qingyang sect, if you only see when you arrive, what if you are actually seen by Qingyang sect? Is it okay for two people to have a conflict? Not arriving on that day can only indicate that you are not. For, it is also said that those who have spiritual roots can directly enter the Qingyang sect for cultivation and not become those who should be robbed. It's better to go to other sects than those who shouldn't be robbed, which brings us back to the first point, end of this chapter. Chapter 9. Everything is ready. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Everything is ready, Brother Zhou, you have suffered. Heaven will bestow a great responsibility on you, so you must first work hard on your heart and mind, labor your muscles and bones. I am sent by heaven to hone you. Looking back on this past, you must feel that you have benefited a lot. Chen Mu flipped Zhou Jinglei over, then took out his cigarette and blew it in his face to make sure he couldn't wake up today. It's not appropriate and a bit dangerous to just leave him by the roadside. After all, there might be some wild beasts in this wilderness. After searching nearby, Chen Mu found a small cave and placed Zhou Jinglei inside. Looking at Zhou Jinglei, who was unconscious, he still felt guilty. Coming into this world, this is his first time going to pit someone who has no grudges against him. Brother Zhou, if you encounter someone ruthless, I might just kill you and silence you. I didn't kill you, is it a grace for you not to kill? Can we be considered equal in this way? Oh, just kidding, don't take it seriously. I owe you one favor, Chen Mu muttered and pondered on the next steps of planning. In the future, there will be a great calamity of annihilating the Qingyang sect, and Zhou Jinglei is the one who should bear the calamity. If he relied on his strength to cope with the calamity, then everything is easy to say. With his own small assistance and the resources of Qingyang sect, his strength will not be inferior to him in the future. He should be able to withstand the misfortunes he can withstand as well. If not relying on strength to cope with the calamity, but for other reasons. In fact, as long as Zhou Jinglei entered the sect, the calamity of Qingyang sect could be successfully resolved. Spending some resources on your own does not have much impact on whether you can resolve the catastrophe. In any case, he must ensure that Zhou Jinglei can also join the Qingyang sect. Brother Zhou, that's the decision. I'll be responsible for taking the benefits first. If we rely on our strength to cope with the calamity, then I'll do it. If we don't rely on our strength, then you can do it. Our division of labor is clear, fair and reasonable. After murmuring a sentence in a low voice, Chen Mu took out paper and pen from his bag. He needs to leave a letter for Zhou Jinglei. After experiencing such a situation, Zhou Jinglei was most likely shocked. When he wakes up and turns around, he's completely confused. It's hard to say whether you dare to go to Qingyang sect at that time. Brother Zhou, when you see this letter, I am already in Qingyang sect. It has to be said that the monster we encountered was particularly cunning. It knew Zhou that you were stronger than me, so it knocked you out first before attacking me. How can my strength withstand monsters? However, there is no way out. Just at the critical moment, an elder deacon of Qingyang's sect arrived in time and killed the spirit monster. You and I narrowly escaped death. What happened afterwards? You may not believe it, Brother Zhou, but the fact is indeed so. The deacon elder was greatly shocked when he saw me and said that my talent was amazing. He immediately wanted to take me to the Qingyang sect to meet the sect leader. I asked him to take you along unexpectedly. The deacon elder disagreed. He said he would take 2 people with him and be too busy in case of danger. I was shocked at the time. This place is less than 30 miles away from Qingyang sect. What danger could there be? Moreover, I am just a villager in the mountains and not a rare treasure. As for being so cautious. The deacon has urged me, there's no time to say more. Brother Zhou, forgive me for settling you in the cave first. When you wake up, remember to go to Qingyang sect to find me. Since the deacon elder says I have exceptional talent, I believe other elders who came to Qingyang sect will sell me some face. When I plead with Qingyang sect, they won't blame you for being late. Don't worry, come to Qingyang sect. Chen Mu. As the letter progressed, Chen Mu wrote faster and his handwriting became more sloppy, appearing to be in a hurry. After finishing writing, he found a stone and pressed the letter beside Zhou Jinglei. After Zhou Jinglei woke up, recalling what had happened before, he may suspect himself. But there is one thing he absolutely can't understand. That's why I secretly attacked him. Seeking wealth. I didn't take anything from him, I didn't even search for it. What's the point of making money? Harmful. Is he living well? As for lust, it's just a bunch of nonsense. He is not a big girl. Why beat him up if he doesn't want to do anything? Is the picture fun? And as long as he can't figure it out, he can only associate it with ghosts and monsters. He will look at the letters he left later. If he can't see the loophole, he will definitely follow his own wishes and go to Qingyang sect. If a loophole is identified, he will also go to Qingyang sect for verification. More importantly, despite being late this week, Jinglei remained calm, which definitely gave him some confidence. Talent may be very good. A young man with excellent talent will surely feel very dissatisfied when he sees these contents in the letter. He must want to see what kind of talent he really is, to the extent that even the Qingyang sect disregards such a talented young man. This is another reason why he must go to Qingyang sect. And as long as he goes to Qingyang sect, there are ways for him to deceive himself. As a person of 2 generations and a top student with a small assistant, can't you still win this kid? Brother Zhou, when you go to Qingyang sect, I will cover you up and we will be good brothers from now on. This opportunity, brother, I borrowed it from you, and I will definitely repay it to you in the future. Farewell. After muttering to himself again, Chen Mu stepped over the threshold in his heart. As a traveler, if fortune-telling is true, there is nothing in this world that should belong to him. Is it difficult for him to directly commit suicide when he comes to this world? Or is it because this has been calculated? We won't argue, and we can argue with peace of mind if everything else hasn't been calculated. Isn't that self-deception? Not to mention he came through time travel. Even in his past life, someone calculated that he was destined to be poor and destitute, and that money should belong to others. He wouldn't just lie flat because of this. It is already approaching evening. Looking at the sunset on the horizon, Chen Mu didn't delay any longer and ran wildly along the Tongxian road. As he passed by a mountain stream, he suddenly stopped and without saying a word, threw his bundle into the stream with all his might. Then he took off his robe and threw away the inner armor, treasure bag, and various messy poisons and antidotes inside. Just kidding, as a cultivator, how can you bring these things? What a loss of identity. From now on, these things have nothing to do with me. In the end, he was left with only a knife and a small mirror all over his body. Taking out the mirror and looking at it, Chen Mu's expression gradually became firm and composed. Compared to Zhou Jinglei, he is a bit more resolute and composed. Paired with that extraordinary appearance, it immediately leaves a deep impression on people such as, my future is definitely extraordinary, the embryonic form of a super strong person, and, this person will definitely become a great weapon. There's no way, hard power is not enough, we can only put some effort into soft power. Afterwards, he touched the back of his neck and wiped his clothes with blood. That's not enough, he made a few more holes in his clothes. Well, it's understandable to be late like this. Chen Mu looked at herself in the mirror, smiled contentedly, and then threw the mirror into the mountain stream. It's done. Everything is ready. Chen Mu turned around and continued to run wildly. I've done my best. 20 miles is enough to exhaust him. Imagine, what would the big shots of Qingyang Sect think about an exhausted, tattered, and injured young man appearing in front of the mountain gate at such a critical moment. Not to mention, this young man's appearance is still so extraordinary. Chen Mu's mouth curved slightly, but soon regained seriousness. To enter the play, one must enter the play in advance. Whether it can be achieved or not depends on today. Signed the contract, changed the status, and requested various tickets. End of this chapter. Why is it difficult for him in chapter 10? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Why is it difficult for him in chapter 10? At the same time, on the platform where Qingyang entered the sect, Qingyangzi, along with 7 elders, had already been transformed into 8 watchman stones. I'm eager to see through. As it was already evening, the faces of the 8 of them all became somewhat disheartened, as if time was running out. Especially Qingyangzi, she has a few extra strands of white hair. At this moment, not to mention someone coming to Qingyang sect, it's just a dog. He will welcome him in and treat him well. Teacher. Senior brother, did something unexpected happen? How about I go out and look for it? My elder Qiu Yan has a hoarse voice and a deep tone. Qingyangzi waved his hands repeatedly. We must not, today we are all staying in the sect, just like in previous years. If you go out to search, it's interfering with the sky's secrets. What's the point of bringing someone back in the end? It's just self-deception. And without thinking about it, can anyone be late without any accidents? Upon hearing these words, Qiu Yan swallowed what he wanted to say later and turned his head to look down at the mountain gate. He is an impatient person, and this long wait is too agonizing for him. Time passed by minute by second, and the hearts of the 8 people also sank bit by bit. Although the 8 people may not move their bodies, their hearts are actually suffering in the sea of suffering. At this moment, Qingyangzi suddenly spoke coldly and quietly. Brother Zhang, I have been feeling something recently and I estimate that a breakthrough is imminent. So prepare to shut down for a period of time. During my time in seclusion, you will be the acting leader of Qingyang sect. How about that? As soon as he said these words, Elder Zhang Yan's body stiffened slightly. Conspiracy. There is a conspiracy. The other elders also instinctively looked over. After a moment, Zhang Yan whispered back, Senior brother, the sect leader is a facade. How can we abdicate casually? And on weekdays, I handle all the affairs within the sect, big and small. What difference does it make if you keep it closed or not, junior brother Zhang? Didn't you always covet the position of my sect leader? Qingyangzi's voice suddenly became much harsher. Zhang Yan's tone remained calm. Senior brother, the position of the sect leader was determined by his master's family. How dare I covet it? Occasionally doing something out of line on weekdays is just to give you some motivation for cultivation, senior brother. In my heart, senior brother, you will always be the leader of my Qingyang sect. This sentence was like a heavy hammer, hitting Qingyangzi's chest so hard that he didn't spit out a mouthful of blood on the spot. The faces of several elders around became somewhat strange. Has the 8th day of junior high passed yet? Is this the beginning? As Qingyangzi looked at them, several people spoke one after another. Senior brother, I forgot to tell you something. There have been some incidents in my family recently, and I may need to leave the sect for a while. Senior brother, it's been 10 years since I last went to see my couple. Recently, I heard that she gave birth to a son, so I should go see her too. Several elders vied with each other. This wave is the first to take action. As the patriarch. Impossible. If the sect is destroyed, the sect leader will definitely be cool. Only when an elder can one barely survive. Humph. A group of useless things. Qingyang cursed in a low voice. Although he knows that the words of several junior brothers and sisters cannot be taken seriously, but we cannot completely ignore it. If the person who should be robbed doesn't appear today, Qingyang's sect may have to run away with several elders. Just as he was worried, Elder Shuru of Shuaimai suddenly trembled and said, "Here. Someone is here." Her words were not loud, but in the ears of the other few, they were like thunderous explosions. Almost in the blink of an eye, everyone leaned their heads out of the platform and looked towards the distant mountain gate. If the previous scene was like watching the peerless fairy take a shower. At this moment, it was the fairy who came out of the pool naked. Not only did he leave the pool, but he also danced a spin dance. Who can bear this? Qingyang, along with the 7 elders, stared so hard that their eyes almost protruded. Before the Qingyang sect mountain gate, Chen Mu walked unsteadily. Running for 20 miles, no matter how good his physique is, he is now exhausted. Not to mention that he didn't sleep for 2 days and 2 nights before this. However, although extremely tired, his gaze was incredibly firm. Pada entering the mountain gate, Chen Mu climbed up the stairs. On the platform, Qingyang carefully scrutinized Chen Mu as he walked into the mountain gate. Coarse linen clothes stained with blood. Weary expression and stumbling steps. However, even when he was down to this point, he still couldn't conceal his deep and bright eyes, like a galaxy of stars. That temperament, it bears some resemblance to his past. Boom boom. Qingyang only felt the constant roar in his mind. Scenes come to mind one after another. The waves wash away the sand, and true gold begins to emerge. The mist dissipates, and the moonlight appears. The raging waves subsided, and a small boat slowly sailed out. Just. It's him. At this moment, he was so excited that his body trembled, and his gray hair curled up one by one. He once thought about how to distinguish the culprits if many people came on the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. But now that he really saw this person, he realized where does it need to be distinguished. Not to mention anything else, just those beautiful eyes of the world and the clock are enough. Not to mention that only he came today, there were 100. 1,000. He can also spot this person from the crowd at a glance. The coarse linen clothes are so outstanding, like a lamp in the dark night. If stop talking, it's him. It can't be anyone else. Grandmaster, his elderly family has indeed made great contributions to the cultivation of nature. Surprisingly, 1,000 years apart, we predicted what happened today. The younger generation is incompetent, it's embarrassing for our ancestor. While he was feeling emotional in his heart, Zhang Yan suddenly turned around. Qingyang suddenly let out a loud shout upon seeing this. Brother Zhang! What are you doing? His tone implied cultivation, although his voice was not loud, it was like thunder in Zhang Yan's ears. Zhang Yan, as the elder, usually doesn't hang on to this sect leader. Now that he was suddenly drunk like this, he was really scared. Of course I'm going to welcome him into the sect, what else can I do? Nonsense. Qingyang scolded coldly. What is your identity? What is his identity? Or do you want him to know that he is the one who should be robbed? Speaking of which, he glanced at the other elders. How have we been living these years since we learned about our ancestors' teachings? You all understand in your hearts. If this child knows what kind of person he should be robbed of, it's highly likely that he will live in constant fear and anxiety every day. How can one cultivate in that state? Several elders nodded at the words. Zhang Yan interjected, so what should I do? Qingyang waved her hand. Go stop him. Now his identity is a late-arriving seeker of immortality. If you should scold, scold. Punish as you should. Let him know that our Qingyang sect is not a casual sect. In summary, besides being sure to be included in the door, you can still play the rest as usual. Upon hearing this, Zhang Yan also felt it made sense and immediately nodded. Then his figure flashed and disappeared into place. On the other side, Chen Mu has just climbed more than 10 steps. At this moment, he really can't crawl anymore. But he dared not neglect it. Although he couldn't see anyone, he knew that there might be many big shots secretly observing him. Stay calm. Perseverance. Handsome. Chen Mu kept encouraging himself, and just then, a figure wearing a black Taoist robe stood in front of him. He slowly lifted his head. The person in front of him looks like he is in his 40s or 50s, with a Chinese face, a straight body, and a serious and stern expression, resembling the feared teaching director of a high school in his past life. Today is already the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. What are you doing here? Serious middle-aged people speak coldly. Chen Mu's heart moved and his voice weakened as he said, Senior, I understand. I'm sorry because I've encountered. Shut up. Do you really think Qingyang sect is a place where you can come anytime? Zhang Yan's voice was extremely stern, and Chen Mu was startled. Just as he was feeling a bit lost, a faint sigh suddenly came from the distance in the sky. Junior brother, don't make it difficult for him. This voice comes from far to near, like a spring breeze, incredibly gentle. Chen Mu instinctively turned his head to look. I saw a rainbow of auspicious clouds drifting towards the horizon. On top of the auspicious clouds, an old man with flowing beard and hair, a fairy-like demeanor and a shining spirit, was looking at him with an incredibly kind gaze. Is this a fairy? Chen Mu's heart was shaken. Coming into this world, it was the first time he had seen a true cultivator who could soar through the clouds and mist. Before he could react, the old man had already landed in front of him. Then an inexplicable force surged into the body, sweeping away the previous feeling of exhaustion. Amazing. That's amazing. Chen Mu exclaimed in her heart. Junior brother, this child has gone through countless hardships to come to our Qingyang sect. Why are you bound by some secular rules? Qingyang looked at Chen Mu with an unbearable expression on her face. That appearance is 3 times more benevolent than Grandma Li, the oldest in Shitu village. Zhang Yan behind him suddenly turned black like the bottom of a pot upon hearing this. Damn it. I was tricked. This dog senior brother. No wonder I just asked myself to come over and sing a black face. Originally, it was for the convenience of him to create favorable impressions and pretend to be more competitive. At least he is also a sect leader, and speaking in this tone doesn't feel disgusting. Still changing clothes in such a short time, casting spells to create auspicious clouds. It can only deceive and deceive ordinary people. Shameless. Shameless to the extreme. Zhang Yan was so angry that his teeth were itching, and he wished for a thunderbolt in his palm to kill senior dog in front of him. But just then, he noticed that Chen Mu was looking at him. In an instant, the storm ceased and fell silent. Senior brother is right, it's my appearance. End of this chapter.